relatively close follower of the channel, or if you're in the Discord server that I have, you are aware that I have been threatening to make this 2,000 subscriber special video. And as you can see, there's many questions that have been asked, and unfortunately, this is actually the third time I'm filming this because I just can't seem to get it right. But anyway, we're actually doing it this time, and I think I have an idea in my head that I quite like for how I'm going to do this. So with that out of the way, let's get started and get these questions answered. So the first question here is from Donnie6232, and he asks, how's the new internet? And well, if you don't know, I made a video about how I have Starlink now, and I think it's turned out quite good. It is quite expensive, and the support's not so great. However, it didn't really affect me, but I don't even know if I've still gotten a response for a ticket I opened months ago. I've kind of given up on it. I did have the support ticket came into existence because there was a period of like a week or kind of two, I guess. The internet was having significant periods of time where it was not working. I might be able to find some kind of screenshot here and paste it in, I'm not sure. If not, but basically it was just a lot of downtime for whatever reason. That has not happened since, and it's been quite good since. This is a random speed test I did just now, I guess kind of getting to the end of peak time here at 11:30 at night, but it is a weekend. And you can see that 75 megabits down and 4.5 up, which I think I wouldn't be surprised if this test was undertaken when somebody was using the web server or something like that, because that's awfully low. I think I usually get like 10 or so. And the latency is 53 milliseconds, so it's not too bad. Apparently 180 under load. I don't know what makes that change. But in any case, it's good enough that I've moved my web server back here, and so that's quite nice, really. And if we look at the statistics here, we can see it's mostly up. This is actually kind of an oddly big downtime for how it goes, though maybe it's just kind of a slightly creaky past 12 hours or so, because that's a bit high from what I remember. I generally don't concern myself with speed tests, but sometimes when I'm doing something big, I do like to open the statistics page of the modem and look at this graph, because it is kind of cool. But it did take a couple of tries to get the dish situated right, and it is very slightly obstructed, which may have exacerbated that big problem I had, but I can't do anything about it. It's in seemingly the best possible place in the yard without major landscape changes. But yes, it is more expensive, and while we have not switched stuff yet, we do plan to be able to save some money overall by switching to lower cost and or free TV that is largely going to be internet based, though some antenna, and also possibly VoIP phone service for landline. Oh, there's a little dip there, but didn't even reach the bottom, I guess. So yeah, overall, it's, as they say, better than nothing, and better than the Viasat. That's what they're calling themselves now, as far as I know. One thing that's worth mentioning about the Starlink situation is that I will probably make an update video in the relatively near future covering other experiences. And there goes the monitor to sleep. Dell Inspiron E1505, or as they are much better known, Calculating Genius, asks, can you eat 2,000 cupcake sprinkles? And I think my answer is probably. I do not have 2,000 cupcake sprinkles to test though, but I feel like I could be wrong, but I feel like 2000 cupcake sprinkles probably don't actually take up that much space. And while it would be a lot of sugar, I would probably survive. The Epic Rock 7 asks, what is your favorite XP era PC game? And I think I have two answers for this. My first answer would be something that you actually run directly on the computer, and that would be probably Bejeweled 2, with Peggle being a very close second. If you don't know, which is, if you're my age, that sounds like a relative impossibility, if you ever touched a computer before at least, but if you don't know, Bejeweled 2 is one of those match 3 games. I know they're quite a trope these days, I suppose, but, well, even then, but it was a really prominent one, perhaps one of the most prominent ones ever, but I got a lot of hours out of that game when I was younger, and the thing, it was a keep case with 2 CDs, one of them was Peggle and then the other was Bejeweled 2, and so I played both of those games extensively, and even with my cousins and some friends. But my other answer is Adventure Quest, and that is the Flash player-based game that was really popular in the mid to late 2000s. It's still around today, and you can still play it. But basically, it's an adventure game, of course, where each player, you and the monster, take a turn, and it's just single player, and I think it's best described as it was early on in its time as a coffee break game, in the sense that you can play it for 5 minutes or 500, really. And I used to play it for long periods of time, and sometimes I still do. But anyway, it's a flash-based game. These days they do have a launcher for it, so you can play it on modern computers without much hassle, I suppose. The launcher works on, I think, Windows, Mac, and Linux. But you can still play it in the web browser, and that's pretty much how I always play it. There are also some other Artix Entertainment games that are a very similar concept, particularly Warp Force, which is just kind of an expansion. E. Silestead inquired if I have ever tried the 16-bit PC GOS OS and web browser. And my answer is, unfortunately, still not yet. But I do promise that is actually going to be one of the next few videos, and I know what computer I'm going to use, and I believe I have a rough plan for that, so hopefully that should go okay. And that went out of focus. But anyway, so yes, stay tuned for that. Shroomer 1968 Chevrolet asks, how many hard drives do you have, and how many are working? And if I want, what kind? Well, I think I have some of basically everything. I have basically every contemporary one, like HDST, Seagate, Western Digital, Samsung. Toshiba. I have some of those too. And I have some older ones like IBM, Maxter. Not many of those because most of them die, seemingly. And some IBM, like legitimate IBM ones as far as I can tell. I have a Micropolis drive. Quantum. To answer the second part of this question, I guess I've went kind of third and then second, and then we'll get to first, I guess. Almost all of them are working. To my knowledge, I have exactly 2 dead hard drives. I have a Quantum Bigfoot, which mysteriously stopped working, but definitely catastrophically failed. And then I have the original hard drive from my Presario 3550 that I killed, which I extremely regret doing. I still have that kind of in hopes to aid finding a new one of that same thing at some point, because it was just I can tell it's a Western Digital, but it was kind of a unique sound. I might be able to actually figure out what drive it is. But in any case, I don't tend to keep on holding on to most well, almost all non-working drives. So how many do I have? I really don't know. It might be something like 100, might be slightly more, might be slightly less. I'm not sure. Maybe one day I'll count, but pretty low on the list of things to do. But it is a very good question, and one that's made me think for a bit. Hi Sierra Fox asks, what made you be interested in computers? And well, I'm not exactly sure, but I can tell you how it started, I guess. When I was young, I had some exposure to Windows 98 and Windows ME at first. Windows 98 on the Presario 3550 at my parents' place of work, and Windows Me at home on the Presario 1200 XL. I played games on both of them, and also at preschool and then into kindergarten and whatnot, there was computers there that I did have some experience with. I think for as long as I was there, they were all running XP, though I can't be sure of that. But yes, I have many memories of the early days of playing random games or just looking around in control panel and stuff like that. I guess mainly just having curiosity and significant interest in them for whatever reason. There was not really. I mean, my uncle did web design, and he does know, or at least knew at the time, a lot about computers, but he didn't really encourage me to mess with computers in any way. That was kind of my own doing. So that is kind of an answer to that question, I guess. Apparently I don't have anything better for photo viewing on here, at least not JPEGs. Yeah, I suppose I need to update Paint to do that. Ooh boy. There's a video upcoming on this thing too, and you'll understand why the faceplate is back there. But anyway, Shermer1968 Chevrolet asks, how many fans do you have, and if you want, what kind? And my answer to that is a few. Let's see here. We've got the GE fan back there, and behind it is the Made in Canada Classic fan, which has no grill on it. One Marvin fan, in fact we'll call that Marvin Fan East. And then we have Marvin Fan West, which these fans are a lot of work to maintain because they just go through so much oil. I haven't tried thicker oil yet, but I also don't really have any. But they're really not designed to be super serviceable. I've not yet been able to take one apart. And then inside, I think the only fan that would be considered mine besides the ceiling fans in my room would be the Galaxy box fan, which has a broken blade, which I've taped back together, and that was a success. Oh, right, my original attic fan, which was a really serious fan, unfortunately is deceased, basically, because the blade is cracked and I can't get it to stick back on there with any sort of glue. Hot glue just melts. Not sure what the problem with super glue is. I guess I could try JV Weld, but it's just a matter of time for the rest of that blade because it's plastic and it looks bad. So anyway, I'm not even going to try to cover computer fans because obviously there's a lot of those, but hopefully that's a good enough answer, Mr. Shermer. Win98XP7, also known as Avon, asks, can you still browse social media in Win9X? And well, I think it depends. Windows 98 with the latest kernel X, probably, considering you can run fairly new browsers. Considering how Windows 9X can only make use of one core and the browsers aren't that recent, it might not work very well, but I think you should be able to do Twitter, and even in some of the more classic browsers that you choose for our 9X, you can probably do it if mobile Facebook still exists. I used to use that in Opera 12.02 frequently. But that was pretty much right around when I stopped using Facebook, right after I stopped doing that, coincidentally. But anyway, yes, it definitely varies, and I'm not familiar with every social media site out there. Instagram, I would say, is probably a no, but beyond that, I can't really say. The next question is once again from Avon, and they ask, how about Discord in Win9X? Is there any browser that can be used? If my understanding is correct, as of a couple of days ago, actually, Discord no longer works in New Moon. And I would assume Serpent to be the same case. I haven't personally tried this yet, but if that's true, which it's been on a lot of borrowed time anyway, then presently I don't think it's possible to use Discord in browser on Windows 9X. Again, I haven't personally tried this myself, but to my understanding, the best browser that you can possibly run on 9X at the current time is New Moon and probably Serpent, and the older version of MyPal, which is essentially the same thing as New Moon. But in any case, probably out of luck there, and even then, even the most powerful of 9X machines, probably it wouldn't run very well. But what I would recommend actually is an IRC bridge for the for whatever Discord server. I have one for my server, and it's quite nice actually. It doesn't have every feature ever, but understandably, but it works a lot better than I thought it would. And of course, any IRC client basically can use it. There are also things like browse service, which could allow you to just cheat and render it on another computer and have it shoveled through. But IRC is kind of the only native way, I guess, even though it's not really that native anyway. The next question is from Shroomer 1968 Chevrolet, and he asks, can you estimate how many footsteps I've walked in my life? And the answer is probably, can I? Yes. Would I? No. It's also probably worth pointing out that I'm not remotely trained in terms of calculating such a statistic, but theoretically I guess I could learn it. This next question comes from a likely spammer, as Discord said it, and wouldn't you know it, the Discord was right. A few days later, there was spam from this user. In any case, they asked, how many years do you have left to live? And my answer to this question is, as I see it, infinity, because I currently have no plans of dying. The next question is from PokeGuy, later known as Stellar, and they ask, how can you be sure that Windows Vista isn't just a myth? And Harry says you can never truly be sure about such a thing, and E. Seilsted's answer is footage of the Windows Vista launch party. However, I am reasonably certain that Windows Vista does exist. This computer does run it, and I have a couple of other computers that run it, but basically it's just not anything that I'm really ever looking for in an operating system. Generally, how Windows XP or 7, one of the two, or potentially both, does things, whatever the particular thing is, I generally enjoy more, or find it more useful or compatible to me. But in any case, I am fairly certain that it is not just a myth. E. Seilsted asks, where do you see the future of retro computing? And he says that basically all the readily available PCs fall into two camps, either being capable of XP or 9X, or being able to run Windows 10, which is sort of true. I've never thought about it like that. And then he asks if there's some computer that I still wish that I could get, and then he clarifies about the original question. in 10 years, the machines from the last 15 years will all be Windows 10 machines. So what's the point of getting old Windows 10 machines? And certainly I think for many people the vintage computing as it currently is attracts probably more people. But I still think that no matter what is a vintage computer, there's still going to be some people that are interested in it. And even, I mean, the progress of system requirements per se is slowing down. So older computers of whatever age, of that age as time goes on, are getting more useful because the progress of hardware so far is still being faster than the progress of software. So yeah, I think there will still be a market for vintage computers no matter what they are, but I think in the future, like Windows 10 sort of computers probably will attract less people than like what currently is a vintage computer, but I still think you're going to get a lot of people overall. And for something that I could get still that I don't have, well, I have a lot of stuff, and I recently discovered that there is Compaq branded networking equipment. Like, obviously there's the servers, but like there's Compaq hubs and probably switches as well, and I kind of want one of those, even though it's pointless. I guess a Latitude D630 would be quite nice. A Presario 3550, and possibly just parts for it, because I would like to restore mine still. A Linux Doctor, also known as No Use. I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly. There's been a lot of pronunciations over the years that I thought were right but weren't. But in any case, he asks, what's the best old laptop that is reliable and still usable on the modern web? I would say probably a ThinkPad T60 or T61, or a Latitude D620 or D630 if those count. It depends what you think is old, but I'm thinking like Core 2 Duo is like definitely still solidly usable on almost all of the modern web. I mean, Pentium M, if you play your cards really right, you can kind of get away with some stuff. So even like a Latitude D 400, 600 would probably be sort of okay, but you're really pushing it. And same thing for like a T42 or 3 or whatever. Autorun.inf asks, why do you like the i430VX chipset so much? And the answer is, I don't. I mean, I don't dislike it, and I do sort of like it at least. But it's just kind of a random chipset that I chose as my name because I have it on the Packard Bell Multimedia R515. Yeah. And that is the only instance of it that I have, I think. However, I've seen a board actually at my place of work that's just sitting there that is a 430VX chipset. Always interesting to run into one. But yeah, I have no particular allegiance to them or anything. It just happens to be the name that I chose for the internet. Shroomer 1968 Chevrolet has yet another question, and it is, why are you a mega gay? And well, it truly is a mystery. The world may never know. The former guardian of i430vx.net, also known as Crazy Hobo, asks, when? And my answer is July 14th, 2026. That is when. Shroomer 1968 Chevrolet asks, can we come over for a pizza party? And well, the answer is probably not. Perhaps at some point in the distant future there could be an i430VX pizza party. Who knows? So there's sort of two related questions here. The first part is from Win98XP7, and they ask about older CPUs. How do single-core processors hold up in up-to-date workloads? And the answer is, as Violet kind of says, bad. And do you think AVX instruction set is a must in latest software. Maybe some specific things, but I don't know of much that requires AVX. It's probably more likely to be video editors or something. No, I don't really think it's a must in most cases. And then Schumer 1968 Chevrolet asks, do you think the Pentium 4, probably the 630 because that's what he has, is a good CPU? And how would I rate it in 2022 for things like internet? And as Violet says, again, bad. It's certainly probably usable if you play your cards very correctly, but it's definitely getting long in the tooth. If you want to talk about like vintage computing, if you want to call it that, the 630 is definitely a fairly good CPU if you have an earlier socket 775 board, because you won't be able to use, in some cases you won't be able to use anything that has 2 cores. And then the 630 is also really widely available, so it's cheap. So it could be okay for some kind of retro, if you want to call it that. That's probably an abuse of the term retro. But in some kind of older build that you're putting together. But not in a modern context is it very good anymore. And he says that Discord on a hyper-threaded Pentium 4 using MyPal68, which is a new Firefox browser for XP, apparently works great, which I've not tried it myself, but that's kind of impressive. Because, yeah, as Violet says, they say that so many programs take up 100% of the CPU time, which, yeah, I've definitely seen that. In yet another question from Schumer 1968 Chevrolet, is there more than one i430VX? Are you telling me that nobody else has taken the username and email address that I've blocked out? Because it is technically valid, and it's not me, though I seriously doubt it's in any legitimate use. But no, I don't have that. I don't have that email address, surprisingly. It is the very first thing I tried to make with my current username, funnily enough, but no, not me. Schumer once again asks another question. How many computers do you have? How many have a hard drive under 10 gigabytes? And well, I have no idea how many computers I have. I'm going to guess around 70, but I'm going to count, and we'll see how close I am. And I'm not going to count for the hard drives, but relatively few hard drives under 10 gigabytes. That's pretty small. I don't have all that much for computers that are old enough to have a hard drive that small or smaller, I suppose. But anyway, I'm going to go count, and we'll be back. Well, I do have an answer now. I went and made myself a sticky note as I was walking around, and I'm not sure I like the answer. It's apparently 111 computers. There's easily 30 that I am looking to find homes for, or sell or something. And I did count the couple of workstations that I have, and I did count servers. So everything working and complete or almost complete is in that list. Like, I didn't count motherboards or something. I would reckon that I probably have parts to make maybe 7 more computers, like whole computers, except for cases anyway, just from parts laying around. So yeah, well, today I learned how many computers I have. It's not that crazy, though. There's certainly people with way more than me, but I would like to scale it back a bit, and I am working on that when I have time. And if you can believe it, I don't actually pick up every computer I see anymore. Well, that was never strictly true, but like, even free ones sometimes I pass up sometimes these days. So yeah, I guess that's the answer. Schumer asks, can the I-430VX climb the Sierra Nevada? And if so, while eating cereal? Well, I'm not sure if I'm deserving of the title the, as in the definitive one, but theoretically, probably yes, I could climb the Sierra Nevada, if slowly, and with prior training and such, I guess. And I suppose I could probably eat cereal along the way, but it doesn't seem like a thing I'm terribly likely to do. Schumer asks, do you have perfect vision? What's the smallest thing you think you've ever seen? And well, that's a good question. I mean, I guess it depends what you call perfect vision, though. But, I mean, my vision is good enough that I don't have any issue. I guess it's probably unlikely to be what's considered perfect in all reality. And what's the smallest thing I think I've ever seen? I would imagine floaters, like the things when you look like at a bright thing or the sky. I don't think everyone gets them, but like they're like translucent specks that almost look like bacteria or something. I forget what they actually are, but those things, I believe they're called floaters. However, I might be slightly wrong on that. It appears that you have Microsoft Money 2001 installed on your machine. Anyway, another question from the Shroomer. What is your biggest regret in life? And if you could pick a point in time in your life to go back to, what would it be? Well, I suppose I'm not sure, because there's many factors that would decide what the biggest regret is, but definitely ruining the Presario 3550 is up there. It probably is the top one, in all honesty, which sounds stupid, but just, I really like that computer, and it's incredibly rare, seemingly, and I wish that I didn't ruin it, and it bothers me a lot that I did. But if I could pick a time in my life to go back to, I would probably go back to, like, early or mid-2000s. I guess either would be fine. But only if I could look, like, I wouldn't want to actually be that young, but, like, me now, just, like, looking at what I'm doing and stuff, like, I guess mainly I'd want to see, like, the computers of the time and, like, the various places that I would have went to, what sort of computers they had, and stuff like that. I know it's a bit silly, but from a person like me, do you really expect a different answer? Our final question here comes from former guardian of i430vx.net, also known as Crazy Hobo, and he asks, why is he allowed to make threads in a locked channel? And well, the answer is because I wanted to promote further discussion, but I guess the real answer is because it took me way too long to make this video. But in any case, the video is being made now, and I should have it actually out very soon. Obviously, if you're watching this, the video's out, so, you know. But yes, with this question, we have reached the end of the 2,000 subscriber special. I did mean to make this a little bit more special than this, but I'm just happy to get it out at this point. And I do hope that you did find this video moderately entertaining, at least, or perhaps informative. And I thank you all for subscribing and being along here along the way. It's quite cool to have people that follow what I'm doing, I guess. Making the videos is kind of just a passion for me, but it's always cool that it goes somewhere. So yeah, with that being said, have a good, well, if you have any comments, please feel free to leave them, and have a good day, or night, or whatever.